parliamentary bench of the Union for the Hope of Ecuador activated on Friday the process of impeachment of President Guillermo Lasso due to the current situation of crisis that the country is experiencing. After his victory at the polls following the general elections on June 23rd, Prime Minister-elect Dickon Mitchell was sworn in at the Grenada Trade Center. And in Spain, the death toll of migrants trying to enter the Spanish city of Melilla rose to 49. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The parliamentary bench of the Union for the Hope of Ecuador activated on Friday the process of impeachment of President Guillermo Lasso due to the current situation of crisis that the country is experiencing. The mechanism known as cross-death, established in Article 130 of the National Constitution, was set in motion after the Assembly members of UNES gathered the 46 signatures required. Now the head of parliament must convene a session within the next 24 hours. The legal mechanism was proposed due to the situation of protest that the indigenous movement and other social sectors are carrying out in rejection of the neoliberal policies of the current government, which has not responded to their list of demands. Ecuador marks 12th day of anti-government protests. Social and indigenous movements demand Guillermo Lasso's government to comply with the petition of guarantees and stop police repression. Demonstrators from different social sectors rejected once again repressive actions of the public forces in the capital city of Quito, which last day left one person dead as a result of the impact of pellets. The incident took place in the middle of the mobilizations that were taking place outside the House of Culture and the National Assembly in the capital, and with this, there are at least 4 people who lost their lives during the national strike. The Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador, CONAI, urged the government that they are not refusing to dialogue, but insisted on the fulfillment of the list of 10 demands. After his victory at the polls following general elections on June 23rd, Prime Minister-elect Dickon Mitchell was sworn in at the Grenada Trade Center. The Prime Minister-elect said that even as his new government will come with different ideas and approaches, he will make sure not to dismantle programs that especially benefit ordinary people the most. The leader of the National Democratic Congress said he would inform the Governor-General to declare today, June 24th, a public holiday or bank holiday, so that citizens can celebrate Grenada's liberation and the victory they have won for Petit Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada. Mitchell stated that from Monday his administration will be working to rebuild and begin the process of transforming the country. Now let's learn a bit more about Dickon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada. 44 years old, Mitchell was born on October 8, 1978 in the parish of St. David. Mitchell graduated as a lawyer from the University of the West Indies at Cape Hill in Barbados. The recently elected Prime Minister was a notary public of the state and honorary consul of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Grenada. On October 31, 2021, Dickon Mitchell was elected leader of the National Democratic Center Congress Party. Meanwhile, the first Secretary of the Cuban Communist Party and President of the island nation, Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez, congratulated Dickon Mitchell on his election as new Prime Minister of Grenada. The head of state ratified the country's will to continue advancing the development of friendly relations and cooperation between Grenada and Cuba for the benefit of both peoples. On Friday, the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, through a statement congratulated the elected Prime Minister of Grenada, Dickon Mitchell, and all the Grenadian people for their democratic exercise, which passed without any incidents. In the same context, the regional organization announced their commitment to work together with all Caribbean countries to strengthen the cooperation in the region. The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Commission extends congratulations to newly elected Prime Minister of Grenada, Dickon Mitchell, and the National Democratic Congress on their victory in the June 23, 2022 general elections in Grenada. The OECS Commission is pleased by the peaceful conduct of elections and commends the Canadian people for turning out in large numbers to exercise their constitutional rights. The Commission looks forward to welcoming the newly elected government and assures the government and people of its continued commitment and service to the promotion of the country's interests as a member of the OECS Economic Union regionally and internationally. In the same context, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, congratulated the National Democratic Congress leader Dickon Mitchell on winning the general elections in Grenada on behalf of his government and the people. Prime Minister Gonsalves, on his Twitter official account, also said he looks forward to working with the new government in advancing the regional agenda. In Colombia, the liaison teams appointed by President-elect Gustavo Petro and outgoing President Iván Duque met for the first time to advance in the transition of government. During the meeting, Gustavo Petro's delegation, headed by Vice President-elect Francia Márquez, and the commission appointed by Iván Duque analyzed the projects that remain in execution and the current programs that adjust the government plan of the new authorities. The political leaders indicate that the commission will concentrate on evaluating the fiscal deficit and everything related to national defense, both issues considered a priority for Petro. During the meetings, 23 sectors of the country will also be reviewed together with the state of public institutions. On Friday, Brazilian indigenous communities held funeral honors to Bruno Pereira and Dom Phillips for their work in defense of the Aboriginal peoples. Indigenous communities held the funeral of journalist Dom Phillips in Niterói, Rio de Janeiro, and that of indigenous Bruno Pereira in Recife, in the state of Pernambuco. Chukuru people, with their rituals, chants, and customs, bid farewell to Pereira and Phillips, who were not only academics and experts but also friends and advocates on behalf of Amazonian native people. On June 18th, the Brazilian Federal Police confirmed the assassination of British journalist Dom Phillips and Brazilian ethnologist Bruno Araujo Pereira, who disappeared on June 5th and were shot to death with a hunting weapon. We're taking a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back from the South. As Venezuela observed this Friday the 201st anniversary of the Carabobo battle, President Nicolas Maduro once again called for a civic military union. In a message sent to the armed forces, the Venezuelan president said that Bolivarian army must be created in deep unison with the people, which was the fundamental idea of Commander Hugo Chavez in making the Bolivarian revolution. Maduro said that the national army is anti-imperialist by nature, that it stands as a firm defender of anti-colonialism and of the ideas of the founders of the Bolivarian homeland. He also said that the victory of Carabobo 201 years ago meant the birth of Colombia as a nation as part of a geopolitical project to foster unity in South America around a political, economic, cultural, social, and military core.
With the victory of Carabobo, the birth of Colombia was completed. The project of the Great Colombia, the geopolitical project to generate the union of South America, around a bloc of forces, political, economic, cultural, social, and military.
The Venezuelan president also stressed the need to build an anti-colonialist and Bolivarian army.
At present, more than ever before, we must build an anti-colonialist, anti-imperialist, anti-oligarchic Bolivarian army. The Bolivarian army should more than ever before build on its historical morality, to tell the people its truths, for the construction of equality, independence, justice, freedom, the republic. Today we must build a united Bolivarian army in deep union with the people.
The United States Supreme Court has ended constitutional protections for abortions that had been in place nearly 50 years in a decision by its conservative majority to overturn Roe v. Wade. Friday's outcome is expected to lead to abortion bans in roughly half the states. The decision, unthinkable just a few years ago, was the culmination of decades of efforts by abortion opponents, made possible by an emboldened right side of the court that has been fortified by 3 appointees of former U.S. President Donald Trump. The ruling came more than a month after the stunning leak of a draft opinion by Justice Samuel Alito indicating the court was prepared to take this momentous step. It puts the court at odds with the majority of citizens who favor preserving Roe. According to opinion polls, in his final opinion issued on Friday, Justice Alito said that authority to regulate abortion rests with the political branches, not the courts. And on Thursday night, the United States Senate approved the increase of firearms control in the national territory with the agreement of Democrats and part of the Republican bench. From now on, the bill will move to the House of Representatives, where it is expected to be approved, given that the Democrats promoting the bill have a majority at that chamber.
5 is the number of votes in favor of the bill and 33 against. Therefore, the motion is agreed and the amendment is approved.
According to Mohamed Ayoya, UNICEF representative in Afghanistan, the number of children killed in this week's earthquake in the eastern part of the country will rise as more bodies are recovered from underneath the rubble.
We would not exclude to see the number of child deaths and the number of child injured going up in the coming days, because efforts are still on the ground to try to find more people under the rubbish, unfortunately. As I said, as of today, we have 121 child deaths and we have 67 injuries, but we expect, unfortunately, to see actually more.
Supplies from aid organizations, including Doctors Without Borders and World Food Program, arrived in earthquake-hit Gayan district in eastern Afghanistan after the country's deadliest earthquake in more than 2 decades killed more than 1,000 people and left dozens homeless. According to United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, the global agency has fully mobilized to help. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees dispatched tents, blankets, and plastic sheeting. The World Food Program delivered food stocks for about 14,000 people, and the World Health Organization has provided 10 tons of medical supplies, sufficient for more than 5,000 surgeries. Many survivors of the country's deadliest earthquake in more than 2 decades were on Friday without food, shelter, and water as they waited for relief workers to reach them. Officials said nearly 10,000 houses were destroyed, an alarming number in an area where the average household size is more than 20 people. And more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Spain, the number of migrants dead after trying to enter the autonomous city of Melilla rose to 49. Authorities reported that the people died after trying to enter the country from Morocco by jumping the border fence in the autonomous city. Officials said that 57 other people were injured while 133 migrants managed to enter the Spanish town. In this context, the governments of Spain and Morocco agreed to put an end to their diplomatic tensions over the issue of Western Sahara and to resume cooperation on migration issues. In the United Kingdom, Conservatives led by British Prime Minister Boris Johnson suffered a major setback in their partial election, in which Labour and the Liberal Democrats won 2 seats in the first round. After learning of the defeat, Conservative Party's honorary chairman Oliver Dowden resigned on Friday. The defeat of the Tories in the constituency of Wakefield, North England and Tiverton and Huntingdon, which the Conservatives had won in the 2019 general election, calls into question Boris Johnson's leadership and places him now at the center of criticism for the parties at Downing Street residents during the pandemic. In this context, the winning legislators called on the Prime Minister to resign.
Tonight, the people of Wakefield have spoken on behalf of the British people. They have said without reservation, Boris Johnson, your contempt for this country is no longer tolerated. Your government has no ideas. There is no plan to address the major problems facing our country. It is not acceptable that a quarter of all children in Wakefield live in poverty.
The Tunisian General Workers' Union rejected the reforms proposed by the International Monetary Fund to facilitate a new loan to the country. The union rejects the conditions the IMF is trying to impose because of low salaries, poverty levels, and the unemployment rate. The unions, which already disapprove of the government's overall performance, strongly oppose reforms suggested by Tunisian President Kais Saied, which have the IMF blessing. Since February, the country's executive has been seeking the support of the International Monetary Fund to cover a deficit of 2,600 million euros, weighing on the public budget. According to UGTT, the demands of the Monetary Fund include a 10% cut in civil servant salaries, a 5-year wage freeze, the privatization of public companies, and the elimination of food subsidies. Patricia Scotland retained her position as Commonwealth Secretary General, narrowly defeating challenger Jamaican Foreign Minister Camilla Johnson-Smith. Scotland was re-elected for a second term in office during the ongoing Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting 2022 in Kigali, Rwanda. Baroness Scotland received 27 votes against Smith's 23 votes, in a vote which had seemingly divided the 54 members of the Commonwealth. The recently re-elected Secretary General successfully managed to retain her position despite not being backed by UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, with analysts stating that her historic win shows the trust countries have in her to continue, having led the body through a difficult times. On his official Facebook account, Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit congratulated Patricia Scotland for her re-election as Commonwealth Secretary General. The Russian government highlighted the strength of its energy industry in the face of unilateral sanctions by the US and the European Union. Russia's Energy Minister Nikolai Shulginov emphasized the strength of the country's oil and gas companies, while assuring that the energy sector and the national economy continue to operate in a stable manner. Shulginov said that Russia's priority is to meet domestic demand for fuel and develop stable ties with allied nations. The minister accused the US and the European Union of causing serious complications to the global logistics chain and distorting the energy market with their illegal sanctions. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Ukraine and Moldova joining the European Union presented no risk for his country because the EU is not a military alliance. However, Lavrov accused the EU and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization of waging a war on Russia, comparing them to the Axis power in World War II.
The European Union is not a military alliance, unlike NATO. Therefore, the development of its relations with other countries which aspire to it poses no threats or risks to us. In the past several years, the EU has significantly evolved, if not mimicked, towards acquiring an aggressive ideological agenda, a Russophobic agenda.
teleSUR expands its signal with new satellite parameters, since more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are heard in other faraway nations. These parameters are in place since June 1st in Latin America and the Caribbean, both in English and in Spanish, and quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. This new multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. And we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.